Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. And we are so glad that you're with us here. We're in hour 2. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're broadcasting and being supported by Extreme Exteriors and so many other advertisers, too. If you hear any of the advertisement on our breaks here, please let those companies know that you heard their ad right here on Where You Live. And we are going to be talking about an interesting concern that's coming up with homeowner associations, and that is with what is called the grain of the baby boomers. And I guess that would be us, Tony. We're in that group.
You speak for yourself.
Okay. Well, that's for me.
Okay.
And maybe
All
a few other people. This was a press release that came from an attorney named LeClaire Ryan, an attorney with the firm called Megan McDonald and Scanlon, and this came out of the PR Newswire. And he brings up some very interesting questions. He says homeowner associations are usually pretty adept at tackling problems like a cracked swimming pool or an unkempt lawn. But given that America's 65 and overpopulation is projected to grow by more than 70% in the next 13 years, HOA boards will be forced to confront a new set of challenges, namely sorting through legal questions created by the aging in place of the massive baby boomer generation. Do you think there's going to be this is going to create a concern?
Well, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't foreseen this until I read this article, and now I have something else to worry about.
Well, I don't think any of us think about it because I think nobody ever thinks about, well, I'm not going to be able to not take care of myself.
Well, maybe not, but, we just had a speaker at our staff meeting yesterday talking about getting insurance for long-term care as you age. So I have thought about these things, but I had never thought about the impact on my homeowners association.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, there's got to be a new, anytime you're talking about an idea, people have got to have a new term to be used.
They've
phrase
coined
to be
some
coined.
phrases.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this trend is what they called aging in place.
Okay,
So
and what is aging in place?
Aging in place basically is, they said, thanks to a confluence of the demographic and economic and social factors, more and more elderly residents are just staying put rather than moving into institutional settings such as a retirement or assisted living community. So I suppose that's true.
So they're calling this aging in place because they're staying in their home.
People are going to stay in their home.
Okay.
I think that's something that's probably always happened. I don't know about you. My parents always stayed in their home. They were there 40-some years.
Sure.
My grandparents were there 40, 50 years.
But I think the point is such a bigger proportion of the population is going to be that age for the first time. So community associations are going to find a larger and larger percentage of their members are aging and becoming elderly.
Yeah, now here are some of the concerns, and I think these are valid ones. Now, one, they said that they're concerned with as people get older, is that you will be able to have this first telltale signs because there will be chronic neglect of the house and yard as a first sign that older residents may be declining physically, mentally, or sometimes both, and unable to perform what they need to do and just keeping up the house. That is something that would be a valid point. And especially with an association because people are very concerned, and that's one of the key points for folks living in an association, isn't it? That everything has to be uniformed and maintained.
Yep.
So that would be one area of concern. Number two would be elderly residents could actually pose a danger to themselves and others with potential legal implications for the association. An elderly person might be incompetent to drive.
And yet still be driving.
That's right, because you've got a neighborhood full of kids playing, people walking their dogs, so that would be a concern. Now, I know that we have, in condo associations, we chronically always get a call from someone who never can seem to make it through the garage door opening and closing without it closing on their car.
Okay. So I haven't managed stacked condominium properties that have underground parking, but that's what you're talking about, right? With an automatic garage door? Or just any automatic garage door?
Automatic garage door. I think what happens is some people, it's not all the time. It's not all the time.
But it does happen.
But it does seem to happen a little bit more frequently with people that are a little bit older.
Okay.
And a little bit more hesitant. And so they pull their car up to the entry device, put their card in, the door goes up, and
they creep
in. Is it okay? And they start slowly going. And people don't realize, there's those electric I-beams, and you got to get
pointed at your tire level, right?
Yes, and you got to get the car actually through part way so that it detects that there's something breaking that beam, a car.
Yeah.
And so some people wait
that keeps
and wait.
The door open.
And the door actually comes in, and that's when they come in, and it comes down right on,
or they
on their hood.
Stop when they're halfway through, and so the electric eyes aren't reading a car anymore, and then the door comes down, right?
So it's just
okay.
It's
so that's
funny
a common
occurrence.
one.
And I guess
as long as no one gets hurt.
As long as nobody gets hurt, there's going to be some damage. There's going to be some insurance claims with their car insurance. But yes, that could be a concern. Someone in a car.
Okay.
A third one, and this is something that I saw take place in an association. A person with Alzheimer's disease might end up wandering through a condominium complex, completely disoriented and in need of help.
Yeah.
That was truly unfortunate, but I remember that happening, probably 4 or 5 years ago. There was a guy who came back, got a job in the Twin Cities, purchased a condo in one of the associations we managed, and he had an elderly father that he wanted to have live with him. And that was what a great thing to do. I appreciated that he loved having his father live with him. Unfortunately, his father started to get a little bit of dementia, and so didn't know who he was or where he was, and so he ended up wandering the halls, and then sometimes, unfortunately, would even mess himself and mess the halls too. And above all else, I mean, there's extra work that needed to be cleaned up, and this guy was, of course, the son was embarrassed, and he paid for whatever cleaning needed to take place. But above all of that, he was anguished because he wanted to give his dad a sense of dignity of still being on his own.
Sure.
And that was going away. He realized he couldn't do it because even if he was gone for part of the day, something could take place like that.
So the thrust of this article is, of course, people want to take action and help when they see things like this happening in their community, but there might be some legal fallout if the association takes action.
Yes. Now, and that's true. And the article talks about a couple of things here, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this. It says naturally concerned members of the association board might want to act, but this attorney said, but may need to be careful for potential legal risks involved in doing what might be considered just
an act of kindness.
An act of kindness, exactly. If an association steps in as a response to the noticeable deterioration of a resident's mental acuity, perhaps by seeking an involuntary commitment, the association could be sued for false imprisonment. What do you think about that?
I think that's a little dramatic. I mean, I can see an association concerned about someone's dementia or mental acuity, but to seek an involuntary commitment, that I have known of no association that would leap from being concerned to trying to get the person committed. I can see them trying to contact relatives and trying to contact perhaps adult services in the county to help this person. That seems more likely.
You're right. And when that happens, and if someone does become committed, and even if it is just for a brief period of time, it is because there are other organizations that deem it necessary for
That's right.
for the safety
Objective
of the
organizations.
individual, and it's not something that's subjective that the association has to be.
And
concerned
but perhaps it's worth mentioning in case a board member decides that's the course to take. Okay, let's have him committed. Then he won't be messing up our halls anymore. Someone probably has mentioned it or thought of it. So.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before as it pertained to hoarders. And other
That's
people
right.
with concerns, and there are a number of steps here that this guy mentions in his press release. I'd like us to talk about that, but by looking at the hands on the clock, we've got to take another break. So let's do that right now. And Tony, when we get back, let's talk about some of those things that an association can do if you have concerns for someone's well-being living in an association, perhaps on their own. And that's right here on AM 1280 The Patriot on Where You Live. Back after this.